on Earth. It was the toughest year of my life, but it wasn't enough for my publisher. The places I went to were all permanently inhabited. She argued that there must be nastier places on Earth, even if humans couldn't live there all the time. She challenged me to go and find them. This is Greenland, the largest island in the world. 4/5 of this wilderness is permanently covered by an ice cap, leaving only a small habitable fringe around its edge. Here, life is tough. The Inuit are Greenland's indigenous people. 80% of their food comes from the sea, but for 9 months of the year, that sea is frozen. In the summer, when the sea ice melts, the Inuit hunters are faced with a short window of opportunity where they must gather all their food for the dark, frozen months ahead. One of the biggest prizes that nature can offer during this time is a narwhal, an almost mythical tusked whale that grows to the size of a minibus. The Inuit have been hunting them from kayaks for thousands of years. I certainly didn't want to kill one, but I really wanted to see one of these reclusive, aquatic unicorns. To do this, I was planning on joining a narwhal hunt, and on the way, I hoped to see whether I could survive for just a month in this inhospitable place, where the Inuit have survived for centuries. My final destination was Karnak, one of the most northern settlements on the planet, and from what I'd read, the best place to join a narwhal expedition. But I was starting my journey 1,200 kilometers south in Kangerlussuaq. The Narwhal Hunters can spend up to a week on the ice, and if I was going to hold my own, some training seemed sensible. I was heading for the ice cap. I have to admit I was slightly nervous, and the first man I met did nothing to reassure me. A Norwegian who had just abandoned an attempt to cross the ice cap, he didn't exactly look well. I've never ever been on an ice cap before. Is there any particular advice you'd give me before I go?
Yeah, you can very easily get sunburn up there.
Yeah.
Only after one day.
Yeah. And your lips too, they look quite painful.
Yeah, when I was eating this morning, my lips were bleeding.
Oh no.
Very sore.
Okay, I need a lot of stuff on my lips then, yeah. Stupidly, I'd never thought the sun was going to be a hazard here. But as I was ferried to the ice cap in a truck that looked like a giant Tonka toy, we passed through a landscape more like a desert than an Arctic wilderness. Eventually, the ice cap appeared like something out of a third-rate horror movie. It sat menacingly on the horizon, a great grey blob gently digesting yet another hillside. An hour later, the road ended, and for the next 2,500 kilometers, there was nothing but ice. Greenland is owned by Denmark, and my guide was a Danish postman who doubled as a search and rescue worker. 30 kilometers. So if we were to Kim Peterson had agreed to give me a crash survival course. I found his accent innately comforting.
When we are coming up to the spot where we have to make the exercises, you stay with the snowmobiles, and I will tell you where you can walk.
Okay.
Just in case. Be sure there is no crevasses or something like that under the snow.
Okay, Kim, I promise not to move unless you tell me to. By the time we'd packed our gear onto the snowmobile, it was 8 o'clock in the evening. Squashed in behind a postman I barely knew, I was heading into the heart of the second largest ice sheet in the world. This vast white nothingness is the result of the gradual accumulation of millions of individual snowflakes. It can be up to 3 kilometers thick and is continually moving seawards at a rate of 150 meters a year. After 3 bone-chilling hours, we'd arrived. Quite where, Kim couldn't tell me. But it was now 11 o'clock at night, and the sun, which had dipped below the horizon an hour before, was already beginning to rise. The survival lesson began.
We need at least about 70 centimeters or something like that.
Right.
It would be a good place to
Yeah.
make a shelter.
Greenland's changeable weather systems mean that ferocious storms can appear out of nowhere, so knowing how to build a shelter was vital.
It's very dry snow,
Yeah.
and we cannot build an igloo about that.
Oh,
So
no.
the best I can see is if we are making what we call a snow grave. Yeah.
That's no great.
Yeah, you're building your own grave.
Okay.
It was now 1 a.m, and the lack of any proper darkness and the strenuous exercise were beginning to take their toll. But as soon as I stopped digging, the gentle breeze froze me to the core. I shuddered to think what a real storm would be like up here.
Have you ever actually had to do this for real?
I have done it once.
Uh-huh.
We was 2 persons outside
Yeah.
in a whiteout and we couldn't find home.
In a whiteout, so you couldn't actually see
Yeah, we
anything
couldn't
at all.
see anything.
How long did you have to stay in your hole?
About 12 hours.
That's a short time.
That's a very short time. Normally you can stay there for 1 or 2 days.
Really?
Yes.
The slabs of surface ice provided a suitably ecclesiastical roof. And even though the grave had taken us 4 hours to build, the exercise had at least kept us warm.
Hello, Nick.
Hello.
Welcome to your new home.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's pretty comfy here. It looks. Gosh, immediately you can feel the difference out of the wind.
Yes.
It's really...
Incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible.
Yeah.
There's enough space to get up.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
And slosh into bed.
Yes.
So what's the time now? Do you know? I can't.
I think it's about 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. That's
AM.
That's AM.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't know, would you? I mean, 3 a.m., 3 p.m. It's light all the time.
Yes.
Do you find it difficult? I mean, do you wear eye patches at night, or
No.
No, you can just sleep.
Yeah.
And how long have you been here?
17 years.
17 years. It might take me a few years to get used to. The ice grave was positively snug, but it did have one major design flaw: a lack of curtains. Sorry for him. I mean, I just can't go to sleep because there isn't any night. I don't know what time it is, but it's got to be the middle of the night, and it's bright sunshine. I feel like I've had a good introduction to the ice now, but this is the ice cap. It's rock solid ice, and as I move further north and towards the coast, it's going to start melting and breaking up. And although it's still ice, that's going to be a new challenge. I just hope I'm going to be able to get enough sleep to handle it. Before reaching Karnak, the Narwhal Hunters' Mecca, I had an appointment in the small town of Ilulissat, just 250 kilometers north of Kangerlussuaq. West Greenland is the iceberg capital of the Northern Hemisphere, and this mini-city is perched on the edge of an incredible glacier-filled fjord. During the summer, as the sea ice melts, icebergs carved from the glacier that are penned in through the winter are suddenly released into the ocean. And when I arrived, they were already on the move. I had come to Ilulissat to meet a woman called Rika. I'd read that the Narwhal Hunters are master kayakers, and if I was ever going to stand a chance of seeing a narwhal, it was a skill I'd have to learn. I'd been told that Rika was the woman for the job.
Hi. Are you Rika?
Yes, I am.
How do you do? Nick.
Fine. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too. And I understand you're kind enough to give me a lesson in kayak.
Yes, I am. And you're the guy who has never been in a kayak before.
Exactly right, I feel, yeah.
So,
Rika kept her kayaks next door to her dogs. Much to my horror, I'd entered husky country. I've never been very keen on dogs, and these ones looked far from domestic.
okay?
Yeah.
Can you step down?
Yeah.
Now you have almost the position for carrying it.
Really?
Yeah.
On my head.
Yeah, that's right.
I thought Rika was having me on, but half an hour later, having scrambled into a dry suit, I'd carried my kayak up the 500-odd metres to a small pond behind her house.
Are we nearly there yet, Rika?
The climb alone nearly finished me, but this tall Viking beauty, who also happened to be 3 months pregnant, had little sympathy.
It wasn't that tough, was it?
Well, I'm exhausted.
What we're going to do now is to introduce you to your biggest fear according to kayaking. And your biggest fear isn't the kayak, it's yourself. So you need to understand that the kayak is going to help you. So you can just sit on the ring, on the top of the ring, or behind the ring.
Yeah, okay.
So now you got in. So take your oar.
Yeah.
And just hold it like you feel safe holding it. And now you're ready for doing kayaking, yeah?
Good. Shouldn't we be in the water?
I was glad that Rika was starting me off in this paddling pool, but the water was still barely above freezing.
It is very graceful, isn't it? Well, it wouldn't be graceful if you went in there.
No.
How long would you last?
Yeah, 3 minutes maximum, 5
3
minutes. Yeah, something like that.
We'll stay out of the water.
Unfortunately for me, Rika had other ideas.
So now we are getting to the serious part, because you're going to try to make an Eskimo roll. And it's called an Eskimo roll because the Eskimos, they didn't know how to swim. So if they got out of the kayak, it would be the same as they would drown. So they had to stay in the kayak and be able to turn over if they fall around. So I explained to you what you should do, so let's try to see.
Yeah. Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Did we do it?
Yeah, you did it.
I sort of don't remember going out. Got bad cramp though.
Oh, we hope it's not necessary for you to do it in the ocean.
No.
Despite the freezing water, the prospect of having a 5-metre-long narwhal next to me, instead of a slightly nervous-looking Rika, ensured that it was a long practice session. Having just about thawed out from my dip, I decided to get some rest. But there was a problem. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, the sun was still up, and the curtains in my bedroom were pathetic. I'd had 2 hours sleep in the last 36, and I still couldn't nod off. I decided to go for a walk and get a glimpse of this mini-city at rest. Not a chance. Even though the shops did have the decency to be closed, the town was still a hive of activity. Nobody seemed to be going to bed. It was all very confusing, and I was beginning to wonder if people here slept at all. After just 2 hours of sleep, the moment I'd been dreading had arrived. As I accompanied Rika and some of her friends to go kayaking in the ocean, I was beginning to have second thoughts.
I've sneaked away from Rika for a little moment on my own, because I have to admit I'm a bit nervous.
This really does seem like the big time and I don't feel adequately prepared. But I've got to do it because if I'm going to go out with the Narwhal Hunters, then I've got to get used to kayaking at sea. And I'm sure if I fell out, I won't be able to touch the bottom, quite apart from the temperature of the bloody water.
When we finally reached open sea, Rika's friends were already in the water and turned out to be a bunch of show-offs. Although it has to be said that impressing the lovely Rika was quite high on my list of priorities too.
It's great. This is one of the most difficult rows to make, so it's quite impressive. Yeah, no, you use your hips to get up again. It's quite difficult.
Yeah.
My turn finally came, and the boat's skipper, Akalug, was keen to see what I was made of. It had all been quite easy in the meltwater lake, but now it was deep, and since salt water freezes at a lower temperature than fresh water, it was going to be even colder if I went in. However, before long, there I was, kayaking in the open ocean with the real pros. Then I stupidly started thinking about the narwhals.
Minor panic though.
It was so cold that my glasses froze immediately, but thanks to the dry suit, I felt I could carry on. All I had to do was get back in.
Any idea, Rika?
Just remember to keep your balance down and try to spread your weight.
Giving up in front of Rika was simply not an option, and in fact, gliding silently at sea level between the icebergs was an utterly magical experience. As the melting sea ice breaks up and the icebergs around Ilulissat are released into the ocean, the nutrients that they picked up as they ground their way across the land are released, which leads to an explosion in the plankton population. This, as is the way with food chains, lures fish and seals inshore. In turn, the broken ice allows fishermen to hunt seals from boats, something they can only do during this summer period. Joining a narwhal hunt was going to mean getting in touch with my inner hunter-gatherer, so having dropped off Rika, I continued with Akaluk and his dad on their first seal hunt of the season.
So how long do you spend out at sea on an average seal hunting trip?
We can stay out for 30 hours without sleeping sometimes.
That's hard.
In the summertime, it's always light, you know.
Yes, so you just keep working.
So in the wintertime, we sleep a lot.
Before you can shoot a seal, you have to find one. But after an hour or so, I became increasingly distracted by how close we'd drifted to the enormous icebergs.
All the time I can hear loud cracks as the ice starts melting, and some of these things have got huge gashes in them. If one of these slabs of ice broke off, I wouldn't want to be any closer than I am now.
So Nick, have you had any luck?
No, nothing.
No seals?
Nothing whatsoever.
That's what we do, we just wait.
Hunting seals at midnight.
Yeah.
After 2 more hours of fruitless seal spotting, the temperature had dropped to -10, and my enthusiasm for the hunt was quickly disappearing. Thankfully, I was relieved from seal watch duty, and even though the odds for a good sleep were stacked against me, my body was telling me to try. For the first time in 3 days, I finally managed to nod off, although it wasn't long before my much-needed rest was interrupted. A seal had been spotted, and the pot shots continued as we tracked it for over 3 hours. You had to admire their persistence.
It's 5:30, and I think I'm going to sleep about half an hour this time. They've been at it for 9 hours. Goodness knows how many more to go.
I'd long since realised that the pair of them were never going to accept defeat and book in for some shooting lessons, and I'd entered a sort of meditative Zen state of tiredness and dark deprivation, by the time their persistence finally paid off. It was only when we got nearer that I realised that Akaluk had shot a seal pup. But what I thought didn't really matter. Out here, meat is meat.
They can't grow anything in Greenland. They don't have cows, they don't have pigs, they don't have sheep or a farm. So where are they going to get their meat? They have to go out into the wild and shoot it. And this is what hunting seals is all about.
Akaluk skinned the seal on a nearby piece of floating ice.
So we've been out for, gosh, it's 15 hours now. 15 hours and one seal.
Yeah. It's mostly patience.
It is, isn't it? What's that bit, Akaluk?
That's the liver. I just need to wash it off with blood. Then we can taste it. It's a delicacy.
You just eat it raw?
Yeah.
I'd hardly slept since arriving in Greenland. The temperature would have worried a brass monkey, and now raw seal liver for breakfast.
To taste the liver.
Thank you very much. It's very rich, isn't it?
A lot of vitamins.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the old Greenlanders could survive in these Arctic areas.
Yeah.
We don't get vitamins of anything else. Tastes good. You want some more?
No, I think one piece is it's nice to taste. Thank you.
All right.
Despite the risk of scurvy, I decided that seal liver wasn't for me.
You see, we don't throw out anything.
No, use everything.
Yeah.
And it's heavy too, isn't it?
Now that I've seen what's involved, the long hours of waiting and searching until your eyes hurt, and then having to react very fast, it's extremely challenging. Going out looking for narwhals, I know is not going to be easy.
After a 4-hour plane journey from Ilulissat and a hitched lift from the airport, I had arrived in Karnak, the world's most northerly palindrome and the Narwhal Hunters' Shangri-La. Karnak was the typical Greenlandic assortment of prefabricated wooden housing perched on the edge of a frozen sea. As I wandered around the town, my nose led me in the direction of a strange smell. What looked like a Sunday afternoon barbecue was in fact a traditional delicacy. Take one seal carcass, stuff with birds, and bury for up to 6 months. Serve raw. It was significantly colder here, and unlike Ilulissat, the sea ice had not yet broken up. I was told that the Narwhal Hunters were therefore delaying their trip. Since I had time to kill, my contact, Hansi, a sort of Inuit Arthur Daly, suggested that I accompany him on a 2-day trip, delivering supplies to an outlying village.
Are you going on this sledge?
Yeah.
It's big, isn't it? Much bigger than the ones we get in England.
Yeah.
How fast does it go?
It's about 7 kilometers an hour.
Yeah?
Yeah.
With how many dogs?
10, 12 dogs.
Great.
Uncharitably, I thought that 12 dogs would be the very minimum needed to get any sledge with Hansi on it moving. We were heading for the remote village of Sirapulu, the northernmost settlement in Greenland. The 6-hour, 50-kilometre journey would take us across the Murchison Sound and alongside Herbert Island. This far north, the sea ice is the road, which meant that our route was not without its dangers. A couple of hours into the journey, and I thought we'd had it. As the sea ice melts, huge cracks appear, some several metres wide, and the sea below can be up to 100 metres deep.
This way, lad.
Okay.
Are there many cracks like this, Hansi?
Yeah, it's gonna be some more.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's a pretty serious sized one, isn't it? That dog didn't like it, did it?
No, but make them refresh.
Refreshed?
Yeah.
Ready for the journey?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's one way of looking at it. Looks like a bank of fog over there.
Yeah.
See? How quickly can the weather change here?
It can change from day to day.
Yeah. So if the wind blows in off the sea, it could shroud us in fog.
No sooner had I said it than an almighty fog engulfed us, making it impossible to see anything. I sensed that Hansi didn't fancy a dip, however refreshing he may have thought it was for his dogs, so he stopped to wait for the fog to clear. In an environment like this one, you never miss an opportunity to gather food. Hansi suggested that we dig a hole and do some fishing.
How big should the hole be?
A little bit bigger than the fish.
And
For that size.
that size.
Yeah.
And what sort of fish is it?
It's polar cod.
Polar cod.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I don't think I've ever had a polar cod before.
Yeah.
What's it taste like?
It tastes like a fish.
Yeah, okay.
Hansi's no-nonsense, monosyllabic dialogue was straight to the point. When it came to digging the hole, I felt I'd been given the short straw. But I wasn't about to argue with a man whose personal insulation meant he could brave the sub-zero temperatures in just a sweatshirt.
So how long do you reckon it's going to take us to catch one?
Yeah. From 5 minutes to an hour.
Up to an hour, huh?
Yeah.
Perhaps I ought to put a hook in myself now.
Yeah.
Double our chances.
So we can.
I didn't fancy hanging around in the cold for an hour, and thankfully we didn't have to.
I got one.
You have? Hey, well done. Hey, pretty good one.
Yeah. We don't gonna be starved.
No, that's a polar cod, is it?
Yeah.
A fine specimen. Hey, wait a minute.
You have got.
Yeah, I think I may have got one too, you know.
You got one too.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes! Yeah, look at that.
Good.
It's bigger than yours, Hansi.
Yeah. A little bit bigger.
It's quite considerably bigger, I would say. I think that makes me polar cod fishing champion.
Yeah.
Right, and the weather's changed. Perfect timing, eh?
Yeah.
Let's go and stick these in the pot, and then we can be on our way.
Yeah.
A few hours later, and we'd finally arrived in Sirapulu. Having arranged a lift back with Hansi to Karnak the following day, I headed into town, and the stomach-churning smell that I'd picked up out on the sea ice became almost overpowering. I wandered towards the landing stage, eyed up by vicious-looking dogs, but I needn't have worried. These were not dogs hungry for an opportunistic snack. There were plenty of scraps around, for in their struggle to prepare for the long winter ahead, the 20 Inuit families of Sirapulu were in full hunting mode. Dozens of carcasses adorned the wooden drying platforms scattered around the quay. They'd bagged seals, walruses, even polar bears. It was like a village of the dead, and it appeared that it wasn't just wild animals in the firing line. I had no idea what this dog's sin had been, and to be honest, I was afraid to ask. It felt like Sirapulu was clinging to the very edge of the world by its fingernails, and in a shack on the far side of town lived a man who seemed to have let go completely. Hansi had suggested I meet Ikuo, who had moved here from Tokyo 30 years ago and lived the life of an Inuit hunter ever since.
Hello,
Hello.
are you Ikuo?
Yes, I am.
How do you do? My name is Nick.
Yes,
I'm from-
welcome.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. How long have you lived here?
About 30 years I have been living here. One of the reasons I like living here is hunting.
If you've been here 30 years, you must be a very experienced hunter by now.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
As we chatted, I could barely hear Ikuo above the noise of the birds that swarmed across the mountain above us.
The birds seem to be very active now. What is the name of these birds?
Oak.
Oak.
They call in English. Now it's too late catching birds.
You actually catch the orcs,
Yes,
do you?
catch, yes, for our food.
Ah.
Yes. And
So when is the best time to catch them?
it's early in the morning.
Ah.
Surprisingly, many birds are flying. Yes.
30 years of this solitary existence seemed to have warped Ikuo's sense of humour, but he was at least laughing, and the following morning I joined him on an orc hunt. As we headed up the mountain, I was intrigued to see that all he took with him was a large butterfly net. Ikuo told me that there are thought to be anything from 20 to 100 million orcs living on the northern coast of Greenland. This was just one colony.
It's very steep here.
Yes. We must be careful.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
Yes.
You have to do this every morning just to get your breakfast.
Yes.
After a steep climb that almost killed me, we reached Ikuo's favourite spot, and he insisted that I have a go at catching the birds first.
The birds, now they are coming
from this way,
Yes.
yeah.
So you need to hit this way.
What?
Yes.
Like this?
Yes. So then you put it down because they must.
They can see.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. You're coming. This one.
That would have been
one,
good.
Yes.
So do you reckon
Yes.
Nope.
It's too early.
Too early, that one.
Yes,
Okay.
you must hold it.
They're too good for me.
Now it's coming from back.
Oh. That was quite
Near
close.
miss.
Near miss,
After a while, I began to think that Ikuo was just having me on.
This one is quite good.
Too late.
Yes.
No, I think we may be waiting for some time.
Yes.
I'll try again a bit later.
But then he showed me how it was done.
Hey, you got one. Good catch.
So
How do you kill it? Do you break its neck?
Yes, I usually push the heart.
Push the heart? Jeez.
Yes.
Very efficient way of killing.
Ikuo didn't match his personal best of 900 orcs in 4 hours, but he certainly took back enough breakfast to last him for a while. Back at his hut, I was given a lesson in the art of fried orc.
So you cut one wing off and then
Yes.
you pull the whole breast out.
Yes. And
Wow.
just to take off.
Yeah. And
So,
then the whole
yes,
breast, and that's
yes.
where all the meat is, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the rest, it's for our dogs.
Right.
Yes.
Don't waste anything.
Yes.
Ooh, smells good.
After raw seal liver, fried orc with dried onions for breakfast looked positively cordon bleu.
So please try one.
Thank you very much. Very fine.
Yes. Thank you very
Beautiful.
much.
Well, sorry guys, but you do taste rather good.
Despite the delights of fried orc, the horrors of Sirapulu still weighed heavily on my mind. I was beginning to wonder if I had what it took to join a narwhal hunt. Back in Karnak, the narwhal hunt was on. Clad in standard issue polar bear skin trousers, I was introduced by Hansi to the Inuit hunters who would be my family for the next 6 days.
Mazzula, hi. Nick.
Nick.
Very pleased to meet you. How many other guys, Hansi?
There's Frank.
Hi, Frank. Nick. Oh, pleased to meet you. Hi.
And there's another one. The other hunter. And Mikkeli.
Mikali.
Yeah.
Hi, Mikali.
And Angie.
Angie.
Yeah.
Hi, Angie.
I hope we can see narwhals.
Yeah, so do I. I've been building up to this for a long time, so I'm very hopeful. Hansi, thank you very much for all your help.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Yeah? And
have a good trip.
thank you very much. Okay, Marzula, I'll get on, yeah?
I was surprised to learn that Hansi wasn't joining us, but he explained that he and kayaks had never really gelled. And so, sad to be losing his monolithic presence, we parted company. It was a 2-hour journey to the edge of the sea ice, and the lifelessness of the landscape underlined how utterly dependent the Inuit are on what they can extract from the sea. My misgivings about all the carnage I'd encountered were beginning to be tempered by a realization that hunting is not just a way of life here. It's simply the only way to survive. Yet I still wasn't sure how I'd react to the death of a whale. It was the first night of the narwhal hunt, and by the time we'd set up camp by the edge of the sea ice, Greenland's unpredictable weather had changed for the worse.
This is my first whiteout, and I'm excited. I think it might be because I can see the sea there, and that's a sort of focus point. If I turn that way, nothing. It's just a complete white blankness. The hunters are operating as a team. There's one guy out there at the moment keeping watch for the possible narwhal. I think this is the way it operates. 4 of them asleep, one's on watch. 24 hours a day, there's always someone watching. Like the hunters, everything that they have is multi-purpose. The sledge, okay, it's been used to transport everything here. Once it's here, it becomes a base for a sleeping bag within the tent. They've been pulling slats out of the middle to use as windbreaks, and there's one on the floor so that when you get off in the usual place every day, it doesn't turn into ice. I mean, everything has at least 3 different purposes as far as I can see.
On the long hours of watch duty, I began to get seriously cold feet. How could one man kill a whale 6 or 7 times his size from a vessel that would disintegrate at one whack of its tail? The following day, the unpredictable weather took yet another turn.
It's really bright outside now, so I've had to come in out of the sun. The guys just sit there, and it doesn't seem to bother them, and wait. Waiting actually requires concentration to watch and look, so it's quite tiring. It shouldn't be, but it is. And that's all we can do, is wait until the narwhal comes.
It was day 3. The dogs hadn't eaten since we'd left Karnak, and Madzula asked me to join him on a seal hunt. Only this time it didn't take place in the water.
Hey. Hey. Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
What's that, Madzula?
I can push my gun in ice.
You push it towards the sea,
and
right? With a screen, huh? So the seal won't see us.
Mm-hmm.
It just thinks we're part of the snow.
One thing that has surprised me is the way I'm reacting to slaughtered carcasses. When I first saw a seal being shot, I found it upsetting. Now, they don't register emotionally. I've never been around so much regular death. There are carcasses lying about in various bits, and I don't really see them anymore. You do get used to death because it's important and it's the way these guys live.
Out here, nothing goes to waste. After feeding the dogs, the remainder of the seal was used in a stew.
So what do you think? Narwhal tomorrow?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Maybe.
Yeah. It strikes me we have a problem with all this pack ice. It needs to go out, doesn't it?
We can always hear narwhal not far away from us.
Yeah, I know, you keep saying that. But if there are no ponds here, no gaps in the ice, we're not going to see them, are we? And have you ever given up and gone home?
After a week, we are not seeing narwhal and we just
Go back.
no more tea.
Oh, you run out of basic supplies, yeah. Can't live on seal only. I just got to sleep and someone shouted narwhal. And now we're out here. Actually been very fast. And although I'm still half asleep, I think I've got everything. But we're all at posts. There aren't actually many big ponds left. But we've come quite away from the camp now. And it's back to the waiting game. We're asleep, but it happens to be the coldest it's been since I've been here. So it's good timing by the narwhals. So we've got Frank here. I think that's Matsula over there. There's another guy in the far distance over there. Two more there. Each stationed by large openings in the pack ice. But the number of places where the narwhals could actually turn up, could actually surface, are very few, which is in our favour.
The time had finally come for me to get into my kayak, and I was surprised at how much I'd remembered from Rika. But even though my role was purely to help out, I was beginning to have second thoughts. The hunters didn't have dry suits, and as I crossed the small opening, I still couldn't quite understand how a whale and a kayak could occupy the same tiny space without serious danger. But it was too late for me to get out of the water.
I feel guilty if just a drip comes off the end of my oar and makes a ripple, because these guys are stuck still, don't make a move, and concentrating. I'm still waiting for my first narwhal sighting. And this is potentially the last day because we're running low on resources and the hunters are starting to talk about going home tomorrow. I'm not interested in killing the narwhal or seeing it being killed, but I would like to see one. And today's my last opportunity, I think.
Day 6, and the narwhals appeared from nowhere. I hastily grabbed my little diary camera and rushed to get this footage. Coming up to breathe in the ice cracks, there are at least 20 of these enormous creatures. I'd been imagining how difficult it would be with just one. I watched as Frank and Matsula quickly and calmly prepared their kayaks, but by the time they were ready, the narwhals had dived.
We're all ready. 2 hunters in position in their kayaks. And it's just total silence.
Suddenly, one of the narwhals returned. Frank was given the opportunity to strike. But his harpoon was a fraction too late. Miraculously, the same narwhal came back again. This time Matsula made the strike, but also missed. We waited for another 3 hours, but the narwhals never returned. The hunters were returning empty-handed, but my hunt for the narwhal had ended in a strange sense of satisfaction. I'd witnessed an age-old confrontation between man and beast, and although by now I had grown accustomed to the necessity of death, I was relieved that this time at least, the hunter's stealth and perseverance had failed. As I prepared to leave this magical place, where the sun still shines at night and glaciers, not trees, fill the valleys, I realized that I could only survive here if I rediscovered a long-forgotten bloodlust. But judging by my relief at the narwhal's escape, 40 years of mid-latitude corner shops had left my inner hunter-gatherer deeply buried.